Hello everyone, let's look at the charts of King Charles III. He's about to have a coronation, but in his chart there are some troublesome aspects, and actually there are some indications that he's going to have more trouble than he expected around the time of the coronation. But much more than that, he's at a very destiny-changing moment. I personally feel a bit sorry for King Charles III, actually, having to follow the act of his mother, that long-reigning monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, so beloved all over the world, so popular, such an iconic monarch for this modern age. And his chart has always been challenging, now more than ever. Mahadasha is super revolutionary and actually a little dangerous, and definitely he has to get through these next 3 months in one piece. If you're listening, Charles, take out the calming medication. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to sub below. And if the video is good for you, give it a thumbs up. Let's begin. Here are the charts of King Charles. His birth chart, D1 chart, is here on the left, and the D9 Navamsa. This is not an exhaustive analysis. We're just going to focus in on what's happening right now, but a little bit of background is necessary. King Charles, or Prince Charles as he was known for so long, has been the monarch who has waited longer than any other in British history to become king. He is following a difficult act, that of Elizabeth, and his mother, and her influence on him is shown strongly in this chart, but it is far from easy. The sign of Cancer rising in his chart means that King Charles is a very sensitive man and extremely emotional, actually. His ruling planet, though, the moon, is with Rahu. It's a lunar eclipse that he was born on. Not uncommon. Many royals are actually born on these eclipse cycle. His son actually was also born on an eclipse, solar eclipse. That is Wiliam. But Charles's ruling planet being part of this eclipse, moon eclipse by Rahu, means that he hides his deep emotional sensitivity. Moon is in fire sign of Aries. He's a very reactive, impatient, and highly volatile human being, I would imagine also. Now, aside then from the eclipsing factor common in monarch's chart, we have to see something else here. The moon is the mother, as I say, in everybody's chart, his lord as well. And the moon being eclipsed indicates that there is some wipeout of the emotional nurturance in his early childhood. Even more specifically, in this chart, 4th house lord representing mother is Venus. And where has Venus gone? 12th to the 4th house. Loss of the mother influence. Doesn't mean she has died, but she is not available to him in a nurturing way. And this Venus is debilitated in Virgo. Certainly in his infancy, Charles hardly ever saw his mother. He was exclusively brought up by a nanny. It's very well documented that Charles did not receive as a child emotional nurturance from either of his parents, actually. For example, when he was sick, when he had accidents, when he was even rushed into hospital for emergency surgery as a child, neither of his parents came to visit him, even though they were actually present in the country. School education shown by the 4th house of the chart was a torrid experience also for him, forced to go to a boarding school that he absolutely hated, relentlessly bullied when he was there, no sympathy from his father, Prince Philip, whatsoever, who was extremely harsh towards him. Prince Philip never understood or supported Charles's sensitive nature. What on earth is going on? It's Shani in the 2nd house of early nurturance. Basically, Saturn takes it all away from him and is aspecting the 4th house of his early home experience. 4th house shows the mother, but more than that, the whole domestic and educational experience. We see it all clearly in his very damaged 4th house. The sun is here. Sun is the Atmakaraka, even soul, who he is. Actual sole purpose, but in early childhood not helpful. In a debilitated position, Libra, in the worst house for the sun, 4th house with Ketu, loss. All of his early childhood is damaged terribly by these positions. Furthermore, Mercury, representing learning, is in a death-like position, what we actually call Morakasthana position in the Vedic astrology system in this 4th house. So his early emotional experience is not happy. Saturn is destroying it completely, and His learning in school is more or less a death-like thing, not a happy experience at all. Known in psychology that early experiences in childhood impact later relationships in a very strong way indeed, but it's actually shown in the karmas of the chart. Venus represents relationships in all chart, but the wife in a male chart. It's in a debilitated state, a very not happy position in Virgo. Not only that, it's in a very difficult place, third house. Third house Venus shows many sexual attractions, almost continual, many love affairs happening, but they are not satisfactory at all because Venus is in a debilitated state. He's highly critical of all of his partners, finds it difficult to settle. His first marriage partner was Princess Diana Spencer, and she is shown by the 7th house. First marriage partner is shown in the D1 chart by the 7th house. No planets here, but the ruler of Capricorn, Saturn, has gone 8 houses away. Any house ruler going 8 houses away from its position in the chart has to be either given up completely or completely transformed. In this case, it's going to have to be given up because Saturn is in the sign of Leo, a not happy place for Saturn, showing that his partner herself was not happy and he was not happy with her. It was a no-win situation. It's all confirmed in his D9 chart, the chart of marriage itself. The 7th house represents the first marriage again. No planets here, but the Lord is Mars. Whereas Mars has gone 12 houses away, loss. And in the house, 6th house, which represents divorce. In the D9 chart, we see second wife from the 2nd house, 8 houses away. Mars has gone 5 away. This is much more harmonious, but K2, the other lord, is 3 away, showing complications of love affairs and a rather complicated and difficult history to the relationship. But in this chart, it isn't just 4th house, home experience, education and relationships which have been challenged. Every single planet, actually, every graha in this whole chart is ill-placed by house, not by sign. Jupiter is good in Sagittarius, own sign. Mars is strong in Scorpio, giving him inner resilience, definitely, when he finds that. But the position of all the planets is weak by house, every single one. What does this mean? This means that Charles finds it hard to find his purpose, find his role, find what he should do with his life. Yes, he is heir to the throne, but for so long that was unavailable to him. So how do we find the purpose for which anybody takes birth? What is the soul purpose, as we call it in Vedic astrology? We have to see the highest degree planet in the chart. In his case, it is Sun at 29 degrees of Libra. It's known as the Atmakarika. It shows the purpose you must fulfill in this lifetime, what you have to do. It's never easy, though, to perform these things. Sometimes you have to go against the grain. If you want to find out more about your soul purpose, by the way, check out the video already on my channel, Atmakarika. I will actually link below in the description box for you. His case, because this Atmakarika is weak by sign, Libra, weak by house, 4th house, it will take him some time to find his soul purpose, but it will definitely be something to do with the 4th house. The 4th house ultimately represents Mother Earth, ecology, the environment itself, basically. We all know this is his passion. In fact, Charles set up his very, very successful organic farming business way before it was even fashionable to do so. He was actually seen as a little bit of a nutcase at that time for his concern over environmental preservation, etc. Now, of course, everybody wants to get on board. What about his role as king, you're saying? Where do we see that in the chart? Do we look at 10th house of Korea? No, this is a mistake. In the power of monarchy, looking to what a monarch does, we can only see it from Atmakarika, because Atmakarika is not just his sole purpose. Big secret is it carries the power of kingship in the charts of monarchs. So when we have monarch's chart, we must see Atmakarika not just for his sole purpose individually, but for the actual power of the monarchy, what he does with it, and furthermore, who he will pass it on to. So how popular will he be? What will he do as a king? Will he attain his desires for kingship, and who, or will he pass it on to, is shown by this planet. Let's have an example from the chart of his mother so I can show you how this works. In Queen Elizabeth's chart, the Atmakarica highest degree planet is Jupiter in a debilitated state, actually Capricorn, but it's conjunct to Mars in his most exalted degree and exalted state in Capricorn. Therefore, it's a very powerful Nichbang Raj Yoga where Jupiter is lifted out of debilitation, and it's a long reign and powerful influence shown here. Don't forget, Jupiter is very happy to be in this house for which he is Karaka. She preserves the family tradition, second house, intact. Who inherits the throne from her? We have to see influence on the Atmakarika. Very clearly, Mars is that primary influence. By the way, Mars Jupiter, one of the most powerful yogas anybody can have in their chart. So Mars is going to inherit. Who is Mars? It is the lord of the fifth house, children and first child. But in a female chart, we have to see ninth house as well to confirm. Why? Because ninth house represents first pregnancy. No contradiction there, because the Lord of Leo is the sun. It's gone into Aries, ruled by Mars. So the first pregnancy, first child, will definitely inherit the throne. Let's consider King Charles's power of kingship then in exactly the same way. There may not be a Nichbang Raj Yoga to save Charles in that wonderful, powerful way seen in Elizabeth's chart with that Atmakarika. But what we do see is something almost as good, a very strong Parivartanan Yoga. You see, Venus, Lord of the Sun, is debilitated himself in Virgo, but the Lord of Virgo is with the Sun, and they are exchanging because Mercury rules Virgo and Venus rules Libra. So this Parivartanan exchange between Venus, Mercury helps the Sun and will ultimately make him king, has actually made him king. Timing of that, of course, will depend on Mahadasha. Basically, he became king in the Jupiter-Venus period, in the period of Venus, the Lord of the Sun, being brought out of Parivartanan. I'll show you that at the end. Now, he may be king, but he certainly doesn't have the strength of that Jupiter-Mars shown in his mother's chart, because the Sun is with Ketu. This shows some lost situation in regard to his kingship. And although there is definitely Parivartanam between Mercury and Venus, nonetheless there is conflict shown because Mercury is the ruler of the third house of conflicts and arguments and disputes. They're all coming up as he becomes king. Brings me though to the sixth house of the chart, the house of open enemies. Every king, every ruler, every prime minister, whoever they are, must be aware of their enemies. In this case, it's shown by Sagittarius and Jupiter, but Jupiter is strong in this sign, in his own house. It's a Viprit Raj Yoga. And he's in Jupiter Mahadasha right now. I'll talk about that in a minute on the video, but my goodness, when you come into the time of the ruler of your sixth house, in the sixth house, the enemies come out of the woodwork. And so wherever Charles goes now, in this country anyway, there are always people holding placards, a very small minority, but there they are saying, "Not my king," and even eggs have been thrown at him. What's going on? This would never have happened to his mother. Well, there has always been a very small Republican Party in this country, and they've had little success previously because the Queen was so uniquely popular. But Charles is their poster boy. They've been waiting for him to be king, hoping that he would be increasingly unpopular and therefore gain credence for their cause. And they're definitely putting a lot of energy actually into agitating against him. So it's interesting to see then that this Atmakarika is so weak in comparison to Queen Elizabeth. He is carrying on with the monarchy, but in a much less blatant and strong position than his mother was. What can we see then? Ketu, Mercury indicate who will inherit from Charles. Now, Ketu is not a good thing to have with the Atmakarika. It can show that something is being lessened, something is being reduced in power. It could indicate that somebody abdicates at the most extreme, but I don't think that's going to happen. Why? Because Ketu is the lord of his fifth house. Fifth house is his first child, Prince Wiliam. It looks very likely that he will actually pass on the monarchy to him, or certainly to his first son's descendants, because Ketu has gone 12th to itself from the house of children. But who is this mysterious Mercury also with the Mahadasha? Well, Mercury represents females, young children, normally sister. Now, he does have a younger sister, Princess Anne, and she's extremely close to him, a very strong influence and support to him. But no, it is definitely not her, because she is nowhere in line to the throne. This could be Princess Charlotte or even Princess Lilibet, I believe. One of them will have a very strong influence, it seems, on the continuity of the monarchy. But that's for the future. Let's look at the present situation where his two sons are at war with each other and putting the king under enormous stress. Let's look at William and Harry in his chart and see what on earth is going on. In a male chart, first child is shown by the fifth house, where we have Mars strong in own sign. This represents William. Strong planet own sign means that this child is a help to him, is a support to him. Mars is a great friend to his lord, the moon. The second youngest child in this case is Prince Harry, and he is shown 3 signs away from the first child because he is the younger sibling of that first child. He is represented by Capricorn in Charles's chart, and Capricorn has no planets, but the ruler is Saturn, and he has gone 8 houses away. 8 houses threatens a whole relationship between people. Basically, it shows that Harry is not happy with his father, and the father is not happy, therefore, with him in this relationship. What else does it show? Saturn is in the sign of Leo. Very weak position for Saturn. Saturn becomes threatened in the house of Leo. Leo is the king. In fact, Saturn in Leo is the actual sign of Republican agitation. Why? Because Saturn is common people. He is the enemy of the sun, Leo. When he's in Leo, he wants to bring down the king, literally. But it's still Charles's chart. So in addition to this representing what his son is, his second son in his life, not a happy situation whatsoever, it definitely represents Charles himself. There is something in Charles that does not like hereditary power. There is something in him that wants to reduce the power of the monarchy. It's a very interesting thing to see. Will the rift between father and son be healed anytime soon? I don't think so. In fact, we can see how dangerous it has become. When Harry published that autobiography, Spare, it's interesting to see where Saturn was. It was exactly 29 degrees Capricorn, an exact 10th house aspect to the sun. The sun, don't forget, as I've shown you, is the power of the monarchy. And the 10th aspect is a destructive one. So that publishing of that autobiography is a direct threat and danger to the power of the monarchy itself. It's going to get more difficult because Saturn is now in Aquarius, directly opposing this Saturn representing Harry in his chart. More opposition, more controversy, more tension. And Saturn transiting 8th house in anybody's chart affects the health. With that in mind, let's have a quick look at the eclipse cycles. Very dramatic and startlingly affecting Charles's chart right now as he comes towards the coronation. The present eclipse cycle, the next one is on the 20th of April, solar eclipse, are actually happening because Rahu is now in Aries. And this is the 10th house of his chart where his Rahu is. These eclipses, which have been going on since last year, affecting Charles, affect him because Rahu is in Aries itself in his chart. It's a Rahu return. Since last autumn, prior to his mother's death, these eclipses have changed his life. They are changing his status, 10th house, and his home life, 4th house, totally revolutionizing everything. Don't forget, he was born on lunar eclipse as well. It's completely churning his whole life in a new karmic direction. But most importantly, it is impacting the sun, the Mahadasha, the power of his kingship. Now, this solar eclipse upcoming 20th of April, though, is very special because, just like the last one in the autumn prior to his mother's death, it is very near, and this one even nearer to the Bhrigu Bindu point in his chart. Bhrigu Bindu means destiny point. It is midpoint between Moon and Rahu. It's approximately 8 degrees of Aries, and the solar eclipse is at 5 degrees of Aries. When eclipses especially, but any major transits influence your Bhrigu Bindu point, destiny point in your chart, everything turns around, everything changes. This is something which you have to take into account reading transits. If you want to know, by the way, more about your Bhrigu Bindu in your chart, your destiny point, check the link below to a video on my channel where I can show you how to calculate that. And the solar eclipse is followed 2 weeks later on the 5th and 6th of May, the actual coronation date, by a lunar eclipse. By the way, these eclipses are not visible in the UK. That somewhat takes away some of the drama, but not much of it. The lunar eclipse, though, once again highlights both the 10th house status and the 4th house of home. What is worrying about this lunar eclipse? By the way, it is not exactly on the coronation day. It is the evening before in the UK. What is a little bit worrying is Mercury actually being stationary and then retrograde on this exact eclipse date. Mercury's not a friend to his lord. It's the lord of his 12th house of all sorts of losses and his 6th house of conflict. There could be conflict. There could be mismanagement. There could be a little crisis around the coronation date. There could be all sorts of unexpected and difficult factors happening. That is a very, very strong possibility. Of course, Saturn's transit are always destiny changing for Charles. They are influencing, as I've just shown, the 8th house of his chart, which is dangerous for his health. This is why I keep on saying the stress level he is under is more than we could imagine. He must take care of his health. But the good news is that this is the 11th house from his moon. It can show fulfillment of long-held desire. In addition, at the time of the eclipses, Jupiter goes into Aries, his 10th house. Of course, this is good because Jupiter is a good planet for Cancer. Lagna, it's the lord of his 9th house of fortune. And it is actually going to go over that sensitive Bhrigu Bindu destiny point. It puts the crown on his head, basically. But it's stressful. Once again, it's not exactly smooth because it agitates the moon and Rahu together. It's all swings and roundabouts, but a transformation coming for Charles, a complete destiny point. What about the coronation chart, you may be thinking? Why am I not bringing up that? Because it doesn't exist yet. It's a bit like trying to make a chart of a child before they've been born. Coronation chart will demand that we know the exact minute that the crown is on his head and he is being anointed. That hasn't happened yet. But we do have the Mahadasha, the unfolding of his karmas shown in the Vedic system. Charles's current Mahadasha, Jupiter, is quite concerning, particularly at this time. It's showing enormous stress and disturbance on him that he has to take extreme care with. Let's have a look at this. Charles is currently in the Vimsotri Mahadasha of Jupiter. It began when he was 64 in 2013 and it goes on until 2029 when he will be just 80. Now, Jupiter is a benefic planet, but in Charles's chart, it is placed in the 6th house. Yes, it is strong in its own sign. That is really helpful. But the 6th house is not a good place for Mahadasha planet to be in general. I've spoken about it early on in the video. It's the house of the enemies, of the conflict, of the endless warfare and the difficulty, the churning up of health issues as well, and a real stress level that goes through the roof, basically. Now, I've spoken about the pre-Raj yogas on a video I made recently. It was all about the 6th house, lord of the 6th house in the chart. And I specifically spoke about 6th lord being in 6th house. You could even check that out to see what I said. I'm not going to repeat it here. But basically, it's not an easy position, even though generally he will, for the most part of his life, overcome conflict, become victorious over his enemies. But in the actual Mahadasha of this planet, it can become critical. It can become difficult. So sometime between now and 29, it becomes extremely stressful and difficult for Charles. As far as Subdasha is concerned, he is in the Venus Antardasha, which has actually been going on for some time, since November 2020, incorporating the death of his mother. And we see death of his mother very, very easily, because Venus, Lord of the Antardasha, is the Lord of the house of mother, and it has gone 12 to itself. Loss of the mother clearly shown. And as I said earlier on in the video, Venus, although debilitated, exchanges with Mercury, bringing Venus out of that debilitated state. So in the Venus Antardasha, he attains the kingship. Don't forget to sub to my channel again if you're new, and I hope the video was informative for you. Goodbye for now, and God bless everyone.